my name's Kelsang Rabten. I got ordained when I was 21 in '94, and since then I've taught in a number of centres, and I have some spiritual responsibility for Australia and New Zealand and a few other places. The teacher at the centre where I got involved was a very sincere practitioner, and he made it very clear how crucial it was in terms of his own spiritual life. And so I practiced then. I'd actually had some sense of the prejudice towards Shugden Buddhists before that, because the town where I was teaching had another centre, and her Lama was telling the teacher of that centre lots of very negative, superstitious things about Shugden Buddhists and the effects of the practice. And she would try to interfere with our centre's activities. She would try to, when I was teaching there, she would approach the students and tell them horrible things about Shugden and so forth. And then, I guess when the ban was formalized in like January '96, then some of the students from the centre where I was involved in Canterbury were in Dharamsala and heard some of those teachings, and then they were phoning back saying, "Oh, we have to stop." The Dalai Lama said you have to stop, and so forth. And so that was there was immediately a certain amount of tension within that little small community. I've had access to the various archives of how things developed, but then a lot of the Tibetan monks in India were contacting England, asking us to get involved, saying that they didn't have any freedom to do so and it was too dangerous for them. And so then we organised a protest outside the Tibet office in London, or Tibet House, and I went there and was involved in that. And then, you know, the demonstrations continued '97, '98, and I was involved because to me it was very clear from the beginning. This is an outrageous restriction of people's religious freedom. You can't ban a practice. You can't pass a law saying that you're not allowed to practice this faith. And also, obviously, you know, I'd studied Buddhism academically before getting involved sincerely as a practitioner. So I studied at university, and I knew the importance of tradition, and I looked at the history within the Tibetan exiles of Trijang Rinpoche and so forth, and saw how important he was, and the importance of practicing within a lineage. And I could see that was being threatened, even though he'd been such a central figure for particularly, obviously, the Gelugpas. To have his teachings and his practices so disrespected was outrageous. And so I was very happy to be involved and to try my best to support the Tibetan Shugden practitioners, but also I'd had my own experiences of discrimination as well, even in the West. Just for example, the prejudice of people trying to interfere with me hosting my classes. People were phoning that we hired venues from various different organizations like the Quaker meeting houses and so forth, and people from other Buddhist traditions would phone them up saying these people are bad, they're evil and so forth, trying to create some disharmony and some problems there. I mean, luckily the people from those places knew us really well and they knew it was completely untrue, but if that hadn't been the case, then that would have caused many problems. I remember one occasion when I was at it was for the freshers, for the new students. I ran a group at the university, and one student who'd been in India and had heard these things about Dorje Shugden came back, and we had a little shrine with images, and he saw the Dorje Shugden one and he tried to smash it. And that was just some Western kid he'd just been to India for a holiday, and enough negativity had been put into him that when he came back he did something really outrageous, you know. And so lots of things like that. He was saying things like he'd been in India and they told him that this was some evil spirit that would cause great harm to people, and that if you do practice it, you should only ever practice it very privately. And he was thinking that I was being, putting it very open and put, I think in his mind, contaminating, And so it was like we've seen that, lately we've seen a number of the Tibetan officials sort of describe Shugden Buddhists and the Shugden practice as if it's a disease. Like, it's really horrible language they're using. And even back then, that was sort of, that got into his mind. I mean, there's this very strange situation where people seem to have an incredible blind faith in the Dalai Lama. Like, so many people will just lose their powers of reason, and people who would normally be quite sort of discerning and check and be logical, suddenly they just glaze over, and if he says it, then it must be true, and it's very, very strange. I mean, luckily, for example, like with the kid that tried to smash the image, then I think he was a bit shocked by his own behavior, because it's like so outrageous. And I got to talk to him, and we spent the afternoon together, because I was like, look, you can't do that. Like, what are you thinking? And then he explained what had happened. I said, well, at least listen to the other side. And we spent the afternoon talking. And in the end, he was very apologetic. And he said, I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened. But it was like some really potent negativity had been put in him. And, you know, I think around the Dalai Lama, there's this sort of aura that you just have to believe. You just have to believe, which is very contrary to Buddhism. Like Buddha said, check. You know, don't just believe because people call me Buddha. Check. And strangely, when it comes to the Dalai Lama, people just lose that, and they would just blindly follow, even though if they were to look a little bit from the outside back at what they're doing, they think this is horrible. I'm being discriminatory, you know. Within the International Shugden Community, then I've been a spokesperson, so I try to get my message across in different ways to the media, in different forums. Like I was invited to a panel discussion at SOAS, one of the universities in London, and basically what we're trying to do, first and foremost, is get the information out to people. What we're hoping, obviously, is to have a direct dialogue with the Dalai Lama, because we feel that this is a situation that is actually very easy to resolve. You know, given all of his public statements about the importance of dialogue, the importance of compromise, the importance of compassion, then there should be a very, very strong basis for solving this problem. Like, it should not be difficult to get him to accept our points. You know, we have those 4 points, asking him to put in writing and to distribute throughout the Tibetan exile communities that he doesn't want any discrimination. You know, like some people say, like, this isn't his fault, but actually all of the discrimination stems from his speeches, and he's never made a speech to say that he doesn't want it. So we want him to start making speeches saying, I don't want discrimination. Like, you know, he can keep his views of the protector whatever he wants. That's his freedom, and obviously he can give teachings according to his own moral conscience. That's his responsibility. But at least in terms of the way people are treated, he needs to be saying, I do not want discrimination, I don't support discrimination. Please tell all the Tibetan people to stop the discrimination. So he should be doing that. So we're hoping through, you know, obviously through protests, we want to put some pressure on him to make him engage with us. Like, because he hasn't given us the opportunity for dialogue, then we have no choice but to put our message on the streets. You know, we don't really want to be doing all of these things. It's, you know, it's very time consuming, it's very expensive, and it's, you know, we have better things to be doing. Like, we would much rather be focused on our own spiritual practice and getting on with what is our main life, you know. But this is a very important issue, and it's affected millions of people, and going forward it could be hugely damaging. Like, if the Dalai Lama were to succeed in wiping out this precious tradition, that would be a disaster for the world. And so we're trying to put some pressure on him so that he will enter into dialogue, and then actually it shouldn't be hard to solve this.
False Dalai Lama, stop lying. False Dalai Lama, stop lying.
DorjeShugden.com invited me to do this interview, and I'm very happy to share some of my experiences and some of my opinions.